Does our mind mess with our money? Sure, it does. Our mind and money are going this way and they're going that way. And we have to solidify our mind to straighten out our money. I have a doctorate in financial planning, and my friend, Dr. Alex Melkumian, he has a doctorate in psychology. We're going to bring these two together to talk financial psychology. We're going to get our mind and money right today. Let's chop. All right. Welcome back to the show. Does our minds mess with our money? Well, hell yes, it does. And who knew Snoop was on to something when he was talking about is our mind on our money and our money on our mind? Money is always on our minds. And we continuously ask ourselves, is this the case? It, meaning our brains, help us process our money decisions, how we feel about our money, and also how we progress our money. So today we're going to chop up about that. Stay tuned. All right, all right. You know what that music means. That means we're chopping it up about life, money, balance. Welcome back to the show. And as always, if you liking what you hear and what you learn on the show, mash that subscribe button. That's what we're talking about. And today we're chopping up about our minds on our money. And as I said, Snoop was on to something when he was talking about that a couple of decades ago now, our minds on our money. And now we have to investigate about what we're talking about our money and our brains and how all that works. Because if we can somehow process how we're thinking about our money and behaving about our money, feeling about our money, then we can make our money grow on our journey. So I've invited my friend, a special guest who's all about that brain, even got a book on it, my friend, Dr. Alex Melkumian. Alex, what's up, my man?
Hey, it's so good to see you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
yes,
really
sir.
took me back with that Snoop reference.
Yo,
So
man, look,
really,
I mean, the song is fire, right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Being
and
an Angelino, I remember when that came out. So definitely took me all the way back.
and did you ever think like it had some sort of big impact on your career, how we're doing like right now?
You know what? The interesting thing is, my career, my journey started way later. I was one of those money avoidant therapists way back then. So I wasn't really interested in money at that time. And what an interesting turn of events, how it came full circle for me. So I definitely agree with Snoop, but many years later.
Right, no doubt, no doubt. Now,
Yep.
I just want to tell the audience, I mean, you got a book on this stuff. I mean, you my dude, But when we talk about financial psychology, let me just go ahead and put that up for the people that are viewing, and then for the listeners, we'll put that up in the show notes. But I mean, you're an expert in this. You're a PsyD, which is I'm a one of those people say PhD. What are you a PhD in? Or obviously financial planning, but you are an actual psychology, doctor. What are some of the things I mean that are most common when we're talking about our minds and our brains on money. That kind of we chop it up about all the time, but they kind of give us barriers, so to speak.
Absolutely. I think we can start with, as a financial planner, you probably can really relate to this. I mean, I think the two most common questions that we get as planners or financial psychologists or therapists is, how do I make more money?
Yeah.
Or how do I keep more of the money that I have? Right.
Mm.
And so obviously, our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions play a pretty big role in how we make those financial decisions and what we do with our money. And I think where I'd like to kind of pull back and start this conversation more on a philosophical journey, I guess. I'd like to start by saying that, we're as humans, we're really thinking beings. And our thoughts and our reasoning is what really separates us from other animals, right? And I just came across this study from a Stanford professor whose name is Fred Luskin, and he actually discovered that the average human being has 60,000 thoughts a day. So when I heard that, it was pretty overwhelming. I've mentioned this to numerous clients at this point, right? But we actually, when you look at that number, it actually comes out to about one thought per second. when you kind of account for sleeping time and the rest. And so the next question becomes, what do we think about most, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I can ask you, what do you think are some
Oh
of the
man,
topics?
well, 60,000. It just goes, yeah, 60,000 thoughts per second. I mean, well, we got
Hey,
family,
yeah,
got love. It for particularly those like in order, not necessarily in order, but those things like what we need for at least for me, those human elements, and a lot of folks don't equate like money with existence. I say money is existence because is existence is representative. So it represents the very things that I'm about to say right now, which is, love, family, those type of aspects, safety, those type of aspects. And when I say that money is existence and money is representative, representative of our life cycle, whether it be trial or triumph or anything like that, then money it's on that list. When you talk about those 60,000 thoughts per second, it's on that list.
yeah. You're really hitting it, head on. And so we got family, loving relationships. I would add religion, spirituality, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And of course, our profession and money, which obviously, yeah, money is really kind of directly and indirectly tied to really all of those topics. So money kind of permeates all of our thinking processes.
Yeah. And so with that, since it's on our mind, like so much, then it's a must. It's a must that we have to address our thought processes behind money, and it makes sense that our brains that we address our brains, we address our hearts. Because I like to say too is like you lead, you open up the heart, you open up the mind, and if you open up the heart, then your mind may listen a little bit more to suggestion, you know. But if you skip the heart and you just leave it to the you just leave it to the mind, and the mind might not process certain things. So you need both. I mean, the journey is they need to work concurrently in order for it to make better, say, outcomes. Coming out there, you can't skip one or the other. You know, and so the emotion of it all and the mindset of it all is very necessary in order to get the numbers right. Can't have the heart or the emotion of the brain without the numbers or vice versa.
Definitely, and I think what you're really kind of alluding to is what we call the interplay between thoughts and emotions, right? And
Mhm,
psychologists kind of been talking about this topic for quite a while, and there's no real answer to what comes first, the thought or the emotion, right? And it actually kind of depends on the situation. Sometimes we lead with our thoughts, and our
mhm.
thoughts really guide and are accompanied by an emotion and a feeling. And sometimes it's the emotion that then creates, a certain thinking pattern. Now, the second example is why we love music so much, for example, right? We start listening to music and it's a whole, vibe. It's new. You want to get pumped up or you want to chill out, right? So that vibe then creates chilled out thoughts, right? Or that's why we may be listening to meditative music. Or if we want to get pumped up, we're ready to go work out. That mood really then creates the thoughts, accompanying thoughts that go along with that mood,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, no doubt. And
But
and so
maybe I can point out one more thing is that what's
yeah,
really important that when we have these thoughts about money,
yeah.
right? There is an accompanying feeling. And when that initial thought is maybe critical or negative or judgmental, it's then accompanied by a negative emotion um, that is really overwhelming.
Mhm.
So, what happens is that our thoughts, kind of group up and there's certain patterns of thoughts. And kind of going back to that study that I just talked about, what they found actually is that 90% of the 60,000 thoughts are actually repetitive. We have no new topics that we think about. It's usually the same relationships, the same money issues, the same stuff at the job, right? And it's kind of the same day in, day out.
But
And that's
that,
where those automatic thoughts really kind of come in. So I wanted to,
yeah, does that mean that in your experience and like the folks that you talk to, does that mean that we have to so we won't get you know locked in, so we won't get locked in into our kind of like our belief systems without more information, so we won't keep ourselves from growing. Doesn't it help to like investigate where we are, this information that we have inside of us to keep our limiting program, you know, from controlling us? We need to investigate that and unlock some things to open it up and say, okay, here's some new info, and maybe I could help me go forward.
yes.
Since there's not a lot of new thoughts.
Yep. So we have repetitive thoughts, we have cyclical thinking, right? And we have rumination, which is basically kind of like an overwhelming a potpourri of thoughts that are just flying around in our mind. And what we are noticing with clients, or actually anybody, I'm sure you can relate to this too,
Mhm.
that sometimes when we overthink, it's just really hard to slow that down or even stop it, right? Like, I
Mhm.
think if I was to ask you right now, can you stop thinking right now for 5 minutes? Is that possible?
It's particularly not me. My brain works.
Me neither. No matter how many site letters I have before or after my name, right?
Yeah,
So we're all human first.
yeah,
We're all human first.
yeah.
And these cycles of thought actually kind of showcase how we can spiral into depression, anxiety, and it creates the same pattern of thought and pattern of emotion as well.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's why we link money and anxiety, money and stress, money and emotion.
How you get into something real cool here, which is getting to the science of how our brain works, because our brain is full of chemicals working on up there, and they react differently to different things. You know, where there's a reason why dopamine has so many synonyms, so to speak. Or as the
Mm,
chemical itself, why it's so addictive. Because it's triggering. It's emotional. It attaches us to certain a lot of different emotions. So let's walk through that. I mean, particularly like, when we talk about the brain and the chemicals up there and what they react to most.
absolutely. Well, I think one of the most interesting studies that I found on this topic is that actually money is processed in the same part of the brain as food and sex.
Mm.
And it's in the area called the limbic system for those who are love nerding out on scientific information. So actually, specifically, it's the basal ganglia. And what that means is that it really attaches to our primitive drive: food, sex, and money.
Wow.
And what happens is that that primitive drive is linked to our survival mechanism, and so our survival mode.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of times we see no matter how little or how much money the client has, they may be operating in that primitive instinctive mode where they're just surviving, even though they're making $500,000 a year,
Mhm. Yeah.
$1 million a year, but their expenses are way higher than what they're earning.
All right, everybody. We appreciate Dr. Alex coming on the show. He had to jump, taking care of his family, and we love the family. So you have me the rest of the show to chop it up about how our mind is messing with our money. And we want you to continue on your life money balance journey. So let's chop it up. What's the level what's the level of this this chemical response that I have, and is it overbearing, is it controlling me? And if it's not if it's overbearing, if it's throwing me off track, um and the like, then I need to ask myself why. There's questions to ask oneself. What is the reasoning behind some of these thoughts? uh, specific questions. Like for instance, I like to ask clients, what's a money regret that you've had in the last 6 to 12 months that you'd like to do differently, you know, and so talk that out. First of all, identify the event, and then talk out the the emotions and the thought process behind it. Then what that does is it gets to the admit stage. It's admitting where someone is, and then acknowledging how one feels about it, and then it's a process, right? And then after that, after you unlock something, this is where the brain processes. Then you able to get more information. Like I said, unlock the heart, unlock the mind. Now the mind is working. So now I have more information now that I've processed the heart, right? So the mind says, okay, now that I have more information, now the next question after that is now that you have more information, what would you do differently? What would you do differently? And the more likely, more often than not, that is a different decision than previously with the reaction. When that emotion is supercharged, right? So and there's an overload of emotion. Um, it could have been a immediate purchase for some instant gratification. And instant gratification is not all that bad, by the way, if you have the resources to do it, or if you're understanding why you are purchasing something or doing doing something. It's the misunderstanding of not being of that purchase or that event, or doing that event in excess. All of that, right? But without any without any safety, well, not a safety net, but without any processing or understanding of either oneself or why, then now we're dealing with that's why that question is there, the regret, lack of information, and lack of processing, right? you know so getting back to the question sequence, which is what would you do differently, most of the time it is different because there's been a process and there's been more information, and now you have something different. Then the question is, how does that make you feel? Okay. Again, now we have the emotion and the brain working together. How does that make you feel now? Because remember, the first question was, how did that make you feel? Now we're back, you know, now that the decision tree is made better, okay, we have a different emotion. And more often than not, that emotion is, oh, you know what? I feel better now because I, I I've aligned, I've processed, I have more information, and now I have used my heart and my mind in order to utilize my money. All right. uh, let's talk about another the way the mind works. All right, cortisol. All right, cortisol assists with formulating memories, so with that, when we talk about cortisol in our brains, uh, there's a dynamic called money scripts, to where stories and events and flashpoints and you know uh, experiences that happens to us while we're coming up in our formulation years, right? That stick with us and influence what how we are managing, or how you're managing your money now and going forward. Again, that the brain, the chemicals in the brain are capturing these moments, chemically, or as cortisol is concerned, shaping memories. Well, brain is a powerful tool, right? So we're recalling these emotions, these memories, right? And so uh, when these memories and experiences happen to us, and then they're shaping, the characteristics, these scripts that formulate in ourselves, and how we uh, how we go about with our money. Then again, that's a brain. So when we ask the question, does your mind mess with your money? Yes. All right. Because your early formulation years contributes to how you are how you are going about your money, now, forming a characteristic, a money characteristic continuum. All right. Which one of these scripts, because of your cumulative, memories and experiences, are most dominant to you? So there's a verse four actually. All right. There's money avoidance, money status, the money avoidance, money status, money worship, and the fourth one is vigilance. So status, vigilance, worship, and vigilance. All right. And uh, each one of these areas can be, they have contributors to, negative relationships with money and positive relationships with money. Okay. And we'll talk about that really on another show. But I wanted to come full circle about, you know, the recall mechanism of the brain. We're walking through chemicals of the brain, and really how, the mind is working, on the money, right? How the mind is working on the money, and what type of mechanisms that you need in place in order to uh, prosper and thrive through barriers, and also identify those areas um, that are most helpful, you know, for you. Because not all mind areas are not all mind areas are bad. Okay. Actually, there's some good. 'Cause going back to a script, vigilance. You're vigilant about your money. These type of things. Now, vigilance has its drawbacks as well. All right, but not all mind, uh, you know, essences um, are bad. Okay, it's not even bad. It's understanding. It's understanding what may be a challenge, and then also some areas that can be champion points for you. That's the key. You know, understanding what could be a challenge point for you and what could be a champion point for you, so you can progress your money. Okay, and your life, because your life and money are aligned. All right, let's walk through another, a brain chemical moment. Okay, oxytocin. Oxytocin is associated with empathy, an important element in building, deepening, maintaining good relationships. All right. So oxytocin is about empathy. And, you know, this is another area of the brain to where we can help ourselves with our perceptions about our money, giving ourselves some grace. Okay, wherever you are in the social economic status. Okay, even for those that concurrent serves, which is higher net worth individuals. uh, you're somewhere too. You have a beginning point too, because he's like, okay, let me address my finances now and see where else do I want to go and go further, right? But it's about perception. How do you perceive, for example, your lifestyle now and your retirement future? Okay, um, or what? How confident do you feel? How confident do you feel? Um, where's the clarity? You know, do we want to reduce anxieties and worry, right? And so some of that, far as brain is concerned, is giving ourselves some grace. So all of these chemicals that we have in our brains, our systems, all right, it matters. So having further explanation, and as our guest was sharing with us, is investigating, uh, our thoughts, our past, present, and future, our connects or disconnects with our brain. All right, and who we are, and our identity matters. Okay. So again, when we say, does your mind mess with your money? It does. And we're trying to get it to, and it's a catchy title, but we're trying to get it to mess with your money in a positive way by better understanding. Okay. And having a process in order to get through to giving your money assignments. Because if your life and money have alignment, then your money has assignments. Because if your money knows what to do by identification, then you can put it to work and it can progress and compound and do and accomplish your life aspirations. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. But with brain and emotional barriers right in front of us, without the proper investigation and understanding, then we simply won't know. Then we simply will not know. Um, and it's a big challenge. Um, there's a lot of other there's a lot the list of ways that your brain can interfere with your decision making processes and how you're thinking and behaving with money is almost endless. Right? You got chemicals in the brain, you got experiences, you got culture, you got you know values that you value most, your attitudes and approaches towards money. Okay, there's a few more I like to talk about, um, which is we have thoughts like inertia, which is too much information. We have avoidance, which is not doing anything at all. We have uh, thought processes like keep obviously keeping up with the Joneses, right? What does that mean though? You heard keeping up with the Joneses. That's very general. What what is the what is the undertones of that? How do we unpack that in order to help us better understand what that means to, you know, you as an individual in order to get where you want to go as an individual, right? And not just have it be a cliche. Okay. So a lot to unpack. Does the mind mess with your money? Yes, it does. Um, However, we can turn a challenge to a champion point with better understanding. All right. I want to thank our special guest, Dr. Alex Melkumian, for being on for a brief moment with us. And love that you're tuning in to the show. Tune in this week for the live cast. Thank you for being here. Like and subscribe so you can see what's coming out every week. We have a live podcast bi-weekly, and we have an LMB lesson bi-weekly as well. Love that you're here. We'll chop it up next week. Stay tuned. Cheers.